Lewis from The Australian has been good enough to join me here in the studio to talk through what's happening right now and I suppose what's happened over the past hour as well. What's your take, first of all, on another question time? And we don't know a lot more now than we did an hour ago, I suppose.
No, we don't. I mean, Labor has, again, we've had Anthony Albanese and Mark Butler use every question it can towards Scott Morrison and Angus Taylor over the phone call, over the New South Wales Police investigation going on. They tried to land some blows. I'm not sure they were very effective today. Probably the liveliest bit was when Angus Taylor managed to speak briefly, and while he referred to his statement he'd made earlier in the week, he also claimed that the allegation against his office was pathetic and outrageous. He would say that. So, look, interesting question time, but I feel we're at the end of the week, and Scott Morrison's sort of tactic accusing Labor of playing political games, while at the same time trying to cause a bit of, upset over the Philip Thompson.
Yeah, so we'll get to that brouhaha in a moment. Let's play first of all what Scott Morrison... This was his explanation today for why he even made this phone call to the New South Wales Police Commissioner Mick Fuller.
I undertook to fulfil my obligations, which he invited me to do under the Statement of Ministerial Standards, where I had to assess whether a minister should stand aside in the circumstances he'd presented. I sought to inform myself, as is entirely appropriate, of the nature and substance and instigation of that investigation, Mr Speaker. I was upfront with the Parliament about doing it.
So he's pointing out he needed to ascertain whether or not a minister needed to stand aside. What's interesting about this is there's an automatic trigger if there are charges. If not, it's up to the Prime Minister to decide if there's a prima facie case. Now, the interesting part about this, I think, is this is why Scott Morrison says in that quote he wanted to inform himself, as is entirely appropriate, of the nature and substance of that investigation. The word substance is what's getting Labor excited, because that, to them, speaks to him trying to find out what's going to happen, are you going to charge him and so on, which they would argue is not appropriate. Scott Morrison sort of saying, well, I'm just trying to clear it up according to the ministerial code. I guess the issue is prima facie literally means at first impact, at first impression. You sort of need to get a prima facie feel for things without asking maybe a commissioner. You can't delve into it and play rumpole. You've just got to sort of look at the facts in the public arena and decide, rather than trying to assess the substance. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, sure, the Prime Minister might have thought, I've got to get across the facts of the minister of this case. Why not call the Commissioner directly? But I think it's well established by now that's very much an issue that not just Labor has problems with, but people within Scott Morrison's own side as well. It's this perception of interference, of why is he getting involved in what is an independent police investigation. So sure, the Prime Minister can say he was simply trying to establish the facts. It was a very short phone call. The Commissioner can say that what I told the Prime Minister was simply what was in that media release, but it's the very action of making that phone call directly to the Commissioner that is in question.
Now,